In the annals of human innovation, few stories captivate the imagination, quite like that of Nikola Tesla, a tale that reads like a magnificent epic woven from the threads of genius and madness, triumph and tragedy, vision and delusion. Born during nature's own electrical spectacle and dying alone in a Manhattan hotel room, surrounded only by pigeons, Tesla's life journey embodies the archetypal narrative of the misunderstood genius, whose revolutionary ideas were both centuries ahead of their time and tragically impractical in their execution. If you use these videos to fall asleep, subscribe so you don't miss any new ones. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the video and any suggestions you have for future ones. The summer storm that raged across the rugged mountains of Lika in the Austrian Empire on the night of July 9, 1856, seemed to mirror the tempestuous genius that would emerge from that wild landscape. In the small village of Smiljan, as lightning illuminated the sky and thunder shook the stone walls of the Serbian Orthodox Church, Nikola Tesla labored to bring her fourth child into the world. The local midwife, witnessing the violent electrical display outside, declared with the superstition common to her era, "This child will be a child of darkness." But Nikola, perhaps sensing something extraordinary about her newborn son, replied with prophetic confidence, "No, he will be a child of light." This dramatic birth story, whether entirely factual or embellished over the decades, would prove remarkably fitting for a man who would dedicate his life to harnessing the very forces that had announced his arrival. Nikola Tesla entered a world on the cusp of the electrical age, born into a family that would shape both his intellectual curiosity and his complex psychological landscape. His father, Nikola Tesla, was a man of remarkable contrasts, a Serbian Orthodox priest who possessed the soul of a poet and the mind of a scholar. Stern yet loving, intellectual yet practical, Milutin had originally harbored dreams of becoming an officer in the Austrian army before destiny led him to the clergy. His extensive library would become young Nikola's refuge and classroom, filled with volumes of history, philosophy, and literature that would feed the boy's voracious intellectual appetite. Milutin's own writings, sermons, essays, and poetry demonstrated a literary gift that he would pass down to his son, along with an appreciation for the power of words to illuminate complex ideas. But it was Tesla's mother, Juka Mandic, who would prove to be the most profound influence on his future path. Here was a woman of extraordinary paradox, brilliant yet unlettered, innovative yet bound by the constraints of rural 19th century life. Born into a family where literacy was valued, Juka had been too busy with household responsibilities to learn to read or write. Yet this apparent limitation only seemed to concentrate her remarkable abilities in other directions. Her memory was so prodigious that she could recite thousands of verses of Serbian national poetry, entire passages from the Bible, and the complete philosophical work, Gorski Venak, Mountain Wreath, by Bishop Njegoš, all from memory alone. More importantly, for Nikola's future, Juka possessed an inventive spirit that constantly sought to improve the world around her. With nimble fingers and an intuitive understanding of mechanical principles, she created a series of household appliances and tools that made her famous throughout the countryside. Her mechanical egg beater, weaving improvements, and various farm implements demonstrated the same kind of practical creativity that would later characterize her son's approach to invention. Tesla himself would later write, "My mother was an inventor of the first order and would, I believe, have achieved great things had she not been so." Remote from modern life and its multifold opportunities, perhaps most remarkably, Juka's manual dexterity was so extraordinary that even in her 60s, she could tie 3 knots in an eyelash using only her fingers. a feat that required not only incredible precision, but also the kind of patient concentration that Tesla would inherit and apply to his own work. This remarkable woman, who navigated the social world of educated clergy despite her own lack of formal education, demonstrated to young Nikola that genius could flourish in unexpected places and take unconventional forms. The Tesla household buzzed with intellectual activity, creating an environment where young minds could flourish. Nikola was the fourth of 5 children, following his brilliant older brother Dane, who had been the family's shining star until his tragic death in a horse-riding accident when Nikola was just 7 years old. This loss would haunt Tesla throughout his life, creating both a drive to excel that might honor his brother's memory and a burden of survival guilt that would contribute to his psychological struggles. The remaining Tesla children, his sisters Angelina, Milka, and Marika, would maintain warm relationships with Nikola throughout his life, though geography and his increasingly eccentric behavior would eventually create distances that could never be fully bridged. His sister Marika, in particular, would remain a source of comfort and correspondence, and her son Sava Kosanovich would become one of the few family members to maintain contact with Tesla in his final years. From his earliest years, young Nikola exhibited the kind of extraordinary mental capacities that marked him as fundamentally different from other children. His memory was not merely excellent, it was eidetic, photographic in its precision and permanence. He could recall entire conversations, word for word, months after they occurred, visualize complex mechanical devices in perfect detail, and recite entire books from memory. This remarkable gift would become both his greatest asset and, at times, a source of profound isolation from those around him. Tesla's visual imagination operated with a clarity and precision that bordered on the supernatural. Unlike most people, who think in words and abstract concepts, Tesla thought in vivid, three-dimensional images that possessed what he called the solidity of metal and stone. He could construct an entire machine in his mind, examine it from every angle, make modifications to its design, and even let it run for weeks before returning to the mental image to check for wear and tear. This extraordinary capacity for visualization would become the foundation of his inventive method, allowing him to perfect designs mentally before ever building a physical prototype. But these gifts came with a price. Tesla's hypersensitive nervous system made him acutely aware of sounds, lights, and vibrations that others barely noticed. He could hear the ticking of a watch rooms away, feel the vibration of approaching footsteps through the floorboards, and detect the subtlest changes in electrical or magnetic fields. This neurological intensity, which may have been related to what we would now recognize as autism spectrum characteristics, would plague him throughout his life with periods of overwhelming sensory overload. Tesla's formal education began at the village school in Smiljan, where his extraordinary abilities quickly became apparent to his teachers. When the family moved to nearby Gospic so that his father could take a position as pastor of the local church, Tesla found himself in a more sophisticated educational environment that could better challenge his remarkable intellect. At the Real Gymnasium in Gospic, which corresponded roughly to modern secondary education, Tesla's academic performance was so extraordinary that his teachers initially suspected him of cheating. The young Tesla could perform complex mathematical calculations instantly in his head, solve intricate physics problems without written work, and recall entire lectures with perfect accuracy. When challenged by skeptical instructors who demanded that he show his work, Tesla would demonstrate his mental calculations step by step, proving that his apparently impossible feats were the result of genuine intellectual capacity rather than deception. These experiences taught him early that exceptional abilities could be met with suspicion rather than admiration, a lesson that would color his interactions with the scientific establishment throughout his career. Despite his academic brilliance, Tesla chafed against certain aspects of his education. He particularly detested freehand drawing, a subject that occupied a large portion of the curriculum at the real gymnasium. His difficulties may have been partly due to his left-handedness, which was considered a handicap in that era, though he would later develop ambidextrous abilities. Interestingly, Tesla deliberately performed poorly in drawing to help a struggling classmate who needed high marks to qualify for a scholarship, an early example of the altruism that would characterize his later decision to tear up his lucrative royalty contract with Westinghouse. It was during his time at the real gymnasium that Tesla first encountered the mechanical devices that would inspire his life's work. In one of the upper-grade classrooms, non-functioning models of water wheels were displayed as teaching aids. These simple devices captured Tesla's imagination, reminding him of the crude water wheel he had built as a child in the hills around Smiljan. More significantly, they connected in his mind with images he had seen of the magnificent Niagara Falls, creating a vision that would sustain him for decades. Standing before those water wheel models, the teenage Tesla made a declaration that must have seemed absurdly grandiose to anyone who heard it. "Someday, I am going to America and harness Niagara Falls to produce power." 30 years later, as alternating current generators at Niagara Falls began transmitting power to Buffalo, New York, using his revolutionary polyphase system, this seemingly impossible dream would become reality. Tesla's voracious appetite for knowledge extended far beyond his formal curriculum. His father's extensive library became his second classroom, where he consumed works of history, philosophy, literature, and science with equal enthusiasm. But Milutin, concerned about his son's health and the strain that constant reading placed on his eyes, in the poor light of tallow candles, eventually forbade Tesla from reading after hours. This paternal restriction led to Tesla's first exercise in creative problem-solving. He fashioned his own candles from available materials, created a makeshift mold, and established a secret reading schedule that allowed him to continue his intellectual pursuits despite his father's prohibition. When his clandestine reading activities were discovered and his candle supply confiscated, Tesla's ingenuity only intensified. This early experience of having his intellectual curiosity constrained would contribute to his lifelong preference for working independently rather than within institutional structures. During these formative years, Tesla also began to exhibit the first signs of the obsessive-compulsive behaviors that would later dominate his life. He developed rigid routines and peculiar habits that seemed to provide him with a sense of control in a world that often felt overwhelming to his hypersensitive nervous system. These early manifestations were subtle: preferences for certain numbers, specific ways of arranging objects, particular sequences for performing tasks, but they foreshadowed the more extreme compulsions that would later isolate him from normal social interactions. After completing his studies at the real gymnasium, Tesla's path to his destiny took him through the prestigious Austrian Polytechnic Institute in Graz, where he would encounter the device that would inspire his greatest invention. It was in a physics classroom that Tesla first saw a Gram dynamo, a revolutionary piece of equipment that could function as both an electric generator and, when the current was reversed, as a motor. The device operated on direct current principles, but it suffered from a significant flaw: the sparking and inefficient commutators that were necessary to change the direction of current flow. Watching the dynamo demonstration, the young Tesla's brilliant mind immediately grasped the fundamental problem. He suggested to his professor that it might be possible to eliminate the troublesome commutators altogether by creating a motor that could operate on alternating current. His amused professor dismissed the idea as equivalent to building a perpetual motion machine, declaring that not even Tesla could hope to achieve such a feat. But the challenge lodged itself in Tesla's mind like a seed that would eventually grow into one of history's most important technological breakthroughs. For several years, the puzzle of the alternating current motor obsessed Tesla. He carried the problem with him as he moved from Graz to Prague and then to Budapest, where he found employment with the Central Telephone Exchange. The mental effort of trying to solve this seemingly impossible challenge began to take a toll on his health. He experienced what he later described as a complete mental and physical breakdown, with symptoms so mysterious and severe that doctors were unable to provide any diagnosis or treatment. Tesla's illness manifested as an extreme hypersensitivity to all forms of sensory input. Sounds that others barely noticed became thunderously loud to his ears. Normal lighting felt like blinding searchlights. The slightest touch or vibration sent shocks through his nervous system. His pulse became wildly erratic. His body shook with uncontrollable spasms, and he developed a hypersensitivity to vibrations that made normal life nearly impossible. The condition persisted for months, defying all attempts at medical intervention and leaving Tesla wondering if he would ever recover. Gradually, the acute symptoms subsided, and Tesla was able to return to work, though he remained captivated by the unsolved puzzle of the alternating current motor. The breakthrough that would change the world came not in a laboratory or lecture hall, but during a leisurely walk in a Budapest park on a February afternoon in 1882. Tesla was strolling through the city park with his friend Anthony Sigety, reciting poetry as was his custom. At 26, Tesla had memorized entire volumes of literature and could recite them word for word. On this particular afternoon, as the sun began to set, he was declaiming passages from Goethe's Faust, allowing the rhythm and beauty of the German poetry to flow through his mind. As he reached the stirring passage that begins, "The glow retreats, done is the day of toil. It yonder hastes, new fields of life exploring," something extraordinary happened. The poetic imagery of light and motion seemed to trigger a cascade of insights in Tesla's mind. In a flash of inspiration so vivid and complete that he would remember it in perfect detail for the rest of his life, the solution to the alternating current motor problem revealed itself. As I uttered these inspiring words, Tesla would later recall, the idea came like a flash of lightning, and in an instant the truth was revealed. The concept was elegant in its simplicity, yet revolutionary in its implications. Instead of trying to mechanically switch the direction of current flow, Tesla envisioned using multiple phases of alternating current, each slightly out of step with the others, to create a rotating magnetic field. This field would induce currents in a rotor without any physical contact, eliminating the need for brushes and commutators entirely. Tesla was so excited by his revelation that he immediately began drawing diagrams in the sand with a stick, explaining the principle to his bewildered friend. "The images I saw were wonderfully sharp and clear, and had the solidity of metal and stone," he would later write. "So much so that I told him, 'See my motor here. Watch me reverse it.'" Tesla could visualize the device so clearly that he could manipulate it mentally, demonstrating its operation in his mind's eye with perfect clarity. The young inventor was overwhelmed by the magnitude of his discovery. "I cannot begin to describe my emotions," he recalled. Pygmalion, seeing his statue come to life, could not have been more deeply moved. "1,000 secrets of nature which I might have stumbled upon accidentally I would have given for that one which I had wrested from her against all odds and at the peril of my existence." This moment in the Budapest Park represents one of the most significant instances of pure inspiration in the history of technology. Tesla had not only solved a problem that had stymied the greatest electrical engineers of his era, he had conceived the fundamental principle that would make modern electrical civilization possible. The rotating magnetic field principle would become the basis for virtually all alternating current machinery, from the smallest household appliances to the massive generators that power entire cities. Armed with his revolutionary insight, Tesla spent the next few years attempting to interest European investors and engineers in his alternating current motor concept. He worked briefly for the Continental Edison Company in Paris, where he designed dynamos and gained practical experience with electrical machinery. While stationed in Strasbourg in 1883, he built a working prototype of his induction motor and successfully demonstrated its operation. Yet despite these promising developments, Tesla found that European industrialists were largely uninterested in his radical departure from established direct current technology. The frustration of being unable to find backing for his revolutionary invention led Tesla to make one of the most consequential decisions of his life. He would travel to America, the land of opportunity, where surely such an important innovation would find the support it deserved. More specifically, he would seek out Thomas Alva Edison, the most famous inventor in the world, whose electrical innovations had already begun to transform American cities. The journey to America in 1884 was itself an adventure worthy of the man who would reshape the world's understanding of electricity. Tesla sailed from Le Havre with little more than the clothes on his back, some mathematical calculations, drawings for a flying machine, and most importantly, a letter of introduction from Charles Batchelor, one of Edison's European business associates. Unfortunately, Tesla was robbed during his journey, arriving in New York with only 4 cents in his pocket and the precious letter that would serve as his passport to the world of American invention. When the tall, distinguished Serbian immigrant presented himself at Edison's office at 65 Fifth Avenue, he carried with him not just hope for his own future, but the seeds of a technological revolution. The letter from Batchelor was effusive in its praise. "I know 2 great men," Batchelor had written. "One is you, and the other is this young man." While Edison might have been skeptical of such extravagant claims, he was also practical enough to recognize that he needed talented engineers to help solve the myriad technical problems facing his growing electrical empire. The first meeting between these 2 electrical giants must have been a study in contrasts. Edison, the self-made American inventor who had built his reputation through tireless experimentation and shrewd business acumen, faced the tall, impeccably dressed European who spoke with the confidence of a man carrying revolutionary ideas. Tesla, for his part, was both thrilled and intimidated to meet his hero, the man whose inventions had already begun to electrify the world. Tesla would later describe his reaction to meeting Edison in terms that revealed both admiration and a growing awareness of their fundamental differences. "When I saw this wonderful man, who had had no theoretical training at all, no advantages, who did all himself, getting great results by virtue of his industry and application, I felt mortified that I had squandered my life. I had studied a dozen languages, delved in literature and art, and had spent my best years in ruminating through libraries and reading all sorts of stuff that fell into my hands." Edison quickly put Tesla to work at the Edison Machine Works, where the young engineer's extraordinary abilities soon became apparent. Tesla's work schedule was punishing, regularly laboring from 10:30 a.m. until 5 a.m. the following day, without exception. Edison himself acknowledged Tesla's exceptional dedication, reportedly telling him, I have had many hard-working assistants, but you take the cake. During this period, Tesla designed 24 different types of standard machines with improved efficiency and uniform patterns, replacing Edison's older, less effective models. The quality and innovation of Tesla's work was so impressive that Edison allegedly promised him $50,000 upon completion of this massive redesign project. However, when Tesla finished the work and requested his promised payment, Edison apparently dismissed it as a practical joke, claiming that Tesla didn't understand American humor. This incident, whether accurately reported or embellished over time, marked the beginning of the end of Tesla's relationship with Edison. But beyond the immediate financial disappointment lay deeper philosophical differences that made long-term collaboration impossible. Edison was a practical empiricist who believed in exhaustive trial-and-error experimentation, famously testing thousands of materials before finding a suitable filament for his incandescent light bulb. Tesla, by contrast, was a theoretical visionary who preferred to work out problems mentally before building physical prototypes. More fundamentally, the two men disagreed about the future of electrical power. Edison was heavily invested in direct current systems, both financially and intellectually. His entire business empire was built around DC technology, and he viewed Tesla's alternating current ideas as an existential threat to his established interests. Tesla, meanwhile, was convinced that alternating current represented the future of electrical power transmission, particularly for long-distance applications where DC systems were inherently inefficient. The inevitable break came after Tesla had worked for Edison for less than a year. The exact circumstances remain disputed by historians, but the fundamental incompatibility between these two remarkable men made separation inevitable. Tesla left Edison's employ to pursue his own path as an independent inventor, carrying with him not just his revolutionary ideas about alternating current, but also a growing understanding that technological innovation required not just brilliant insights, but also the practical support of far-sighted investors and business partners. Tesla's departure from Edison's company in 1885 marked the beginning of what he would later remember as one of the most difficult periods of his life. The young inventor, convinced that his alternating current motor represented the future of electrical power, found himself in the frustrating position of possessing revolutionary knowledge that few people understood or valued. His first attempt at independence seemed promising when he managed to attract backing from a group of investors to form the Tesla Electric Light Company. Tesla hoped that this venture would provide him with the platform he needed to develop and commercialize his AC motor technology. However, his backers were primarily interested in arc lighting systems for street illumination, a profitable but limited application of electrical technology. When Tesla tried to interest his investors in his more ambitious alternating current motor designs, their enthusiasm quickly cooled. Arc lighting was a proven profitable technology with an established market. Tesla's AC motor, while potentially revolutionary, was untested commercially and represented the kind of risky, long-term investment that these practical businessmen were reluctant to make. The conflict came to a head when Tesla's investors made their priorities clear. They wanted him to focus exclusively on improving their arc lighting systems and abandon his work on alternating current motors. For Tesla, this demand was tantamount to asking him to abandon his life's purpose. The AC motor was not just an invention to him. It was the key to a technological revolution that could transform human civilization. Unable to accept these constraints on his work, Tesla found himself forced out of his own company. The investors retained the patents he had developed for them, but left him with nothing. No money, no laboratory, no resources to continue his research. For a man who had arrived in America just 2 years earlier, with dreams of revolutionizing the world's electrical systems, this was a devastating setback. The winter of 1886 to 1887 was perhaps the darkest period of Tesla's life. Reduced to working as a manual laborer, he spent his days digging ditches for the New York City street improvement system, earning the modest sum of $2 per day. The contrast between his current circumstances and his revolutionary vision of the future must have been almost unbearable. Here was a man who could visualize electrical systems of unprecedented sophistication, whose mind contained the solutions to some of the most challenging technical problems of his era, wielding a shovel in the streets of Manhattan. Yet even during this period of hardship, Tesla never abandoned his vision. He continued to refine his alternating current motor designs mentally, using his remarkable powers of visualization to perfect the technology even while his hands were occupied with manual labor. His extraordinary ability to construct and test machines in his mind's eye meant that the lack of a physical laboratory, while frustrating, was not a complete barrier to continued innovation. Tesla's salvation came through a chance encounter that demonstrated how the trajectory of technological history can sometimes depend on seemingly random human connections. A foreman who supervised Tesla's ditch-digging crew became curious about this educated, well-spoken immigrant who seemed so different from his fellow laborers. When Tesla explained his background and his revolutionary ideas about alternating current, the foreman was intrigued enough to introduce him to Alfred S. Brown, a Western Union superintendent, and Charles Fletcher Peck, a New York attorney. Brown and Peck were experienced in the complex world of invention and patent development. Unlike Tesla's previous investors, who had been focused on immediate profits from established technologies, these men possessed the vision and business acumen to recognize the potential of truly revolutionary innovations. More importantly, they understood that breakthrough technologies often require patient, long-term investment before they become commercially viable. After examining Tesla's designs and observing demonstrations of his mental visualization capabilities, Brown and Peck agreed to back him financially. They formed the Tesla Electric Company in 1887, with an agreement that profits from generated patents would be split equally among the three partners. This arrangement finally provided Tesla with the resources he needed to build physical prototypes of the alternating current motors he had been perfecting in his mind for years. Working with characteristic intensity, Tesla quickly constructed working models of his polyphase AC system. The motors he built were exactly as he had envisioned them during his mental experiments. "I made no attempt to improve the design," he would later recall, "but merely reproduced the pictures as they appeared to my vision, and the operation was always as I expected." Brown and Peck understood that successful commercialization of Tesla's technology required more than just working prototypes. They arranged for independent testing to verify the motor's performance improvements over existing designs. They also orchestrated a coordinated publicity campaign, sending press releases to technical publications, timed to coincide with the issue of Tesla's patents. In November and December of 1887, Tesla filed for 7 crucial U.S. patents covering his polyphase A, C motors and power transmission systems. These patents comprised a complete alternating current system that could generate, transmit, and utilize electrical power far more efficiently than existing direct current technologies. The patent applications represented not just individual inventions, but a comprehensive technological ecosystem that could transform the entire electrical industry. The patents that Tesla filed in late 1887 caught the attention of someone whose vision matched the scope of Tesla's ambitions: George Westinghouse, The Pittsburgh industrialist, whose innovations in railroad air brakes had already made him wealthy and famous. Westinghouse possessed the rare combination of technical understanding, business acumen, and financial resources necessary to transform Tesla's revolutionary concepts into commercial reality. When Westinghouse learned about Tesla's alternating current patents, he immediately grasped their significance. For years, Westinghouse had been working to develop long-distance electrical power transmission systems, recognizing that the ability to generate electricity at central locations and distribute it over wide areas would be crucial to the electrification of America. Direct current systems, with their inherent inefficiencies over long distances, were simply inadequate for this vision. Tesla's AC system provided the missing piece of the puzzle. The meeting between Tesla and Westinghouse in 1888 brought together two men whose complementary skills and shared vision would change the world. Westinghouse visited Tesla's laboratory in New York, where the young inventor demonstrated his polyphase motor system with characteristic enthusiasm. The industrialist was immediately convinced that he was witnessing the future of electrical power. Westinghouse's offer was unprecedented in its generosity. He agreed to purchase Tesla's AC patents for $60,000, which included $5,000 in cash and 150 shares of Westinghouse stock. Even more remarkably, he committed to pay royalties of $2.50 per horsepower of electrical capacity sold using Tesla's system. This royalty arrangement, which Westinghouse himself later acknowledged was overly generous, reflected his understanding of the transformative potential of Tesla's technology. The partnership between Tesla and Westinghouse represented more than just a business transaction. It was the alliance between visionary innovation and practical implementation that would make the electrical age possible. Tesla brought revolutionary technical concepts that existed nowhere else in the world. Westinghouse contributed the manufacturing capability, business infrastructure, and financial resources necessary to transform those concepts into products that could electrify entire cities. Tesla spent approximately 1 year working as a consultant at Westinghouse's Pittsburgh facilities, helping to adapt his laboratory prototypes for commercial manufacturing. This collaboration was not without its challenges. Tesla's motors operated at frequencies that were different from the systems Westinghouse's engineers were accustomed to building. Moreover, Tesla's preference for theoretical elegance sometimes clashed with the practical constraints of mass production. Despite these difficulties, the collaboration produced a working alternating current system that was ready for large-scale implementation. Tesla's royalty agreement with Westinghouse, while generous, reflected the inventor's relative lack of business sophistication. He was more interested in seeing his technology deployed to benefit humanity than in maximizing his personal wealth. This idealistic approach to commerce would characterize Tesla's entire career, often to his financial detriment. The timing of Tesla's partnership with Westinghouse could not have been more fortuitous. The American electrical industry was experiencing explosive growth, with multiple companies competing fiercely for market dominance. Edison's General Electric Company had established an early lead with its direct current systems, but the fundamental limitations of DC technology created opportunities for competitors with superior alternatives. Into this competitive landscape, Westinghouse introduced Tesla's AC system at precisely the moment when the industry was ready for a technological leap forward. The stage was set for what would become known as the War of the Currents, a technological and commercial conflict that would determine the future of electrical power in America and around the world. The conflict that erupted between alternating and direct current systems in the late 1880s represented far more than a simple technological dispute. At stake was control over what everyone recognized would become one of the largest and most important industries in human history. The outcome would determine not just which electrical system would power America, but also which inventors and companies would reap the enormous profits from electrifying the world. Edison, whose business empire was built entirely around direct current technology, recognized the existential threat posed by Tesla's AC system. DC power worked well for local applications, lighting individual buildings or powering nearby machinery. But it suffered from a fatal flaw for large-scale deployment. Direct current could not be efficiently transmitted over long distances. The voltage losses inherent in DC transmission meant that power plants had to be located within a few miles of their customers, making it impractical to electrify rural areas or power entire cities from central generating stations. Tesla's alternating current system elegantly solved this fundamental problem. AC voltage could be easily stepped up to high levels for efficient long-distance transmission, then stepped down to safe levels for local use. This capability made it possible to build large, efficient power plants in optimal locations and distribute their output across vast areas. The economic and practical advantages of AC were so significant that its eventual triumph was probably inevitable. But Edison was not about to surrender his electrical empire without a fight. Recognizing that he could not match AC's technical advantages, he instead launched a public relations campaign designed to associate alternating current with danger and death. Edison's tactics in this war of the currents were both ruthless and ethically questionable. The centerpiece of Edison's anti-AC campaign was a series of public demonstrations in which stray animals were electrocuted using alternating current. These gruesome spectacles, conducted under the guise of scientific education, were designed to convince the public that AC power was inherently deadly. Edison and his associates electrocuted dogs, horses, and even an elephant named Topsy, claiming that these demonstrations proved the lethal nature of Westinghouse's electrical system. Edison also collaborated with Harold P. Brown, an electrical engineer, who shared his commitment to direct current to develop the electric chair. By ensuring that this device of execution operated on alternating current, Edison hoped to create a permanent association in the public mind between AC power and electrocution. The strategy was cynical but effective. Newspapers began referring to electrocution as being Westinghoused. Meanwhile, Westinghouse and Tesla were working to demonstrate the safety and superiority of their alternating current system through more constructive means. They recognized that the ultimate test of their technology would come not in staged demonstrations of animal electrocution, but in practical applications that proved AC's advantages in real-world conditions. The decisive moment in the war of the currents came with the competition to provide electrical power for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. This massive international exhibition, celebrating the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas, would showcase the latest technological marvels to millions of visitors from around the world. The electrical contract for the fair represented both enormous prestige and practical proof of which system could handle large-scale power generation and distribution. The bidding war was fierce and highly publicized. Edison's General Electric Company submitted a bid of $554,000 to power the fair using direct current technology. However, Westinghouse, armed with Tesla's more efficient AC system, was able to underbid them dramatically at $399,000. This significant cost advantage, made possible by AC's superior efficiency and the elimination of expensive DC infrastructure, gave Westinghouse the contract and provided Tesla's technology with its most spectacular public demonstration to date. When the Chicago World's Fair opened on May 1st, 1893, President Grover Cleveland threw a switch that illuminated more than 200,000 incandescent bulbs powered entirely by Tesla's alternating current system. The spectacle was breathtaking. Visitors to the exposition were dazzled by the unprecedented display of electric lighting that transformed the fairgrounds into what became known as the White City. Tesla himself maintained a prominent exhibit at the fair, where he demonstrated his inventions with characteristic showmanship. His display included the famous Egg of Columbus demonstration, in which he used a rotating magnetic field to spin a copper egg, causing it to stand upright. This elegant demonstration made visible the invisible forces that powered his induction motor, helping visitors understand the revolutionary principles behind his technology. Even more spectacular were Tesla's demonstrations of wireless power transmission. In a specially darkened room, he used high-voltage, high-frequency alternating current to illuminate gas discharge lamps without any wires connecting them to a power source. Amazed fairgoers could hold these lamps in their hands and walk around the room as the bulbs continued to glow. This demonstration of wireless power, which seemed like magic to 1893 audiences, presaged technologies that would not become practical until more than a century later. The success of the Chicago World's Fair was more than symbolic. It was a decisive victory that established alternating current as the future of electrical power. The exposition's electrical systems operated flawlessly throughout the 6-month run of the fair, proving that AC technology was not only superior in theory, but also reliable in practice. The publicity and credibility gained from lighting the World's Fair positioned Westinghouse to secure an even more important contract: the construction of the world's first major hydroelectric power plant at Niagara Falls. In 1893, while the Chicago World's Fair was demonstrating the reliability and spectacle of Tesla's AC system, an even more significant competition was taking place. The Niagara Falls Power Company was soliciting proposals for harnessing the immense power of Niagara Falls to generate electricity. This project represented the ultimate test of electrical technology. Could any system efficiently capture the tremendous energy of the falls and transmit it to distant cities? The engineering challenges were formidable. Niagara Falls possessed more potential energy than any other single location in North America. But that energy was useless unless it could be converted to electricity and transmitted to places where it was needed. Buffalo, New York, located more than 20 miles from the falls, was the nearest major city. For an electrical system to be commercially viable at Niagara, it would have to efficiently transmit massive amounts of power over distances that we were at the absolute limit of existing technology. Edward Dean Adams, who headed the Niagara Falls Cataract Construction Company, consulted with electrical experts from around the world about the best approach to this unprecedented challenge. Among the systems proposed by various American and European companies were 2-phase and 3-phase AC, high-voltage DC, and even compressed air transmission. Each approach had theoretical advantages and practical limitations. When Adams sought Tesla's opinion on the competing systems, the inventor's response was characteristically confident and visionary. Tesla advised Adams that a 2-phase alternating current system would be the most reliable approach, and that Westinghouse possessed the technology to implement such a system effectively. Tesla's recommendation was based not just on theoretical knowledge, but on his profound understanding of the practical requirements for large-scale power transmission. Tesla's vision for Niagara extended far beyond simply powering Buffalo. He believed that the falls could generate sufficient electricity to power not just nearby cities, but potentially the entire eastern United States. This grandiose vision, which might have seemed fantastical to others, reflected Tesla's genuine understanding of the enormous potential inherent in his AC system. The Niagara Falls Power Company awarded the contract to Westinghouse Electric in 1893, based largely on Tesla's advice and Westinghouse's successful demonstration at the Chicago World's Fair. The decision represented a massive vote of confidence in AC technology and a corresponding rejection of Edison's direct current alternative. At the same time, General Electric, formed from a merger that included Edison's company, received a separate contract to build the AC distribution system, an ironic acknowledgement that even Edison's own company had recognized the superiority of Tesla's technology. Construction of the Niagara Falls power plant was a monumental engineering undertaking. Massive generators were installed in powerhouses built directly into the rock beneath the falls. These machines, based on Tesla's polyphase principles, were the largest electrical generators ever constructed. The transmission system required unprecedented high-voltage lines and transformers, capable of handling power levels that had never been attempted before. On November 16, 1896, the moment of truth arrived. Tesla's AC system successfully began transmitting power from Niagara Falls to Buffalo, making history as the first long-distance, high-power electrical transmission in the world. The achievement vindicated not only Tesla's technical vision, but also his belief that alternating current could transform human civilization by making electrical power available anywhere it was needed. The success at Niagara Falls marked the definitive end of the War of the Currents. Even Edison's staunchest supporters could no longer deny the superiority of alternating current for large-scale power generation and transmission. Direct current would continue to have specialized applications, but the future of electrical power clearly belonged to Tesla's AC system. More broadly, the triumph at Niagara established the template for modern electrical civilization. The principle of generating power at centralized locations and distributing it through high-voltage transmission networks became the foundation of electrical grids around the world. Every time we flip a light switch or plug in an appliance, we are benefiting from the vision that Tesla articulated and that Westinghouse helped make reality at Niagara Falls. While Tesla's alternating current system was conquering the practical world of electrical power generation and transmission, the inventor himself was becoming famous for his spectacular public demonstrations of electrical phenomena. Tesla understood that scientific advancement required not just technical innovation, but also public acceptance and understanding. To achieve this, he transformed himself into a masterful showman whose demonstrations of electrical effects bordered on the magical. Tesla's public lectures and demonstrations during the 1890s established him as one of the most famous scientists in America. His presentations combined rigorous scientific education with theatrical spectacle, making complex electrical principles accessible to general audiences while showcasing the practical applications of his inventions. These events were more than just scientific education. They were carefully choreographed performances designed to capture the public imagination and build support for electrical technology. The centerpiece of many Tesla demonstrations was his revolutionary Tesla coil, invented in 1891. This resonant transformer could generate extremely high voltages at high frequencies, producing dramatic electrical discharges that resembled lightning bolts. When Tesla activated his coil in a darkened auditorium, spectators would gasp as artificial lightning arced through the air, creating thunderous sounds and filling the room with the sharp scent of ozone. But Tesla's demonstrations went far beyond mere spectacle. He used his Tesla coil to illustrate fundamental principles of electrical resonance, showing how properly tuned circuits could transfer energy efficiently without physical connections. His famous demonstration of wireless power transmission involved illuminating gas discharge lamps held in the hands of volunteers who walked around the room while the lamps continued to glow. To audiences in the 1890s, these demonstrations seemed to border on magic. Tesla's flair for dramatic presentation was evident in his personal appearance during these demonstrations. Tall, distinguished, and impeccably dressed, he would often allow electrical discharges to play harmlessly over his body, standing calmly in the midst of artificial lightning, as if he were in complete command of the forces of nature. These displays, while carefully controlled and safe due to the high-frequency nature of the electricity, appeared supernatural to audiences unfamiliar with the underlying physics. One of Tesla's most popular demonstrations involved his development of early fluorescent and neon lighting. Unlike Edison's incandescent bulbs, which produced light by heating a filament until it glowed, Tesla's lights used high-frequency electrical currents to excite gases, causing them to emit light without generating excessive heat. These innovative lighting systems were not only more efficient than incandescent lighting, but also offered the possibility of creating different colors of light by using different gases or phosphor coatings. Tesla's demonstrations of these gas discharge lights were particularly effective at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, where they created a spectacular display that dazzled visitors. The ethereal glow of Tesla's fluorescent tubes, combined with the dramatic effects of his Tesla coils, established him as the master of electrical showmanship. These demonstrations were decades ahead of their time. Fluorescent lighting would not become commercially widespread until the mid-20th century. Perhaps Tesla's most prophetic demonstrations involved wireless technology and remote control. In 1898, at a demonstration in Madison Square Garden, Tesla unveiled what he called his teleautomaton, a small boat that could be controlled wirelessly via radio waves. This demonstration was so far ahead of its time that many spectators initially suspected some form of trickery. The idea that a mechanical device could be controlled from a distance without any physical connection seemed impossible to audiences whose technological experience was limited to mechanical systems requiring direct physical contact. Tesla's remote-controlled boat demonstration was more than just an impressive technological feat. It was a glimpse into a future of automation and wireless communication that would not become reality for decades. Tesla envisioned fleets of unmanned vehicles that could be controlled remotely for various purposes, from military applications to transportation and manufacturing. While the technology of his era was insufficient to realize these grand visions, his basic insights about wireless control would eventually evolve into modern robotics and drone technology. The wireless power transmission experiments that Tesla conducted during his public demonstrations were based on principles he had discovered through his research into high-frequency electricity. He found that electrical energy could be transmitted through the air using resonant coupling between specially tuned circuits. While the practical range of these early wireless power systems was limited, they demonstrated principles that would later be applied to radio communication and, much later, to wireless charging systems for electronic devices. Tesla's role as a scientific showman served multiple purposes beyond mere entertainment. His demonstrations helped educate the public about electrical technology at a time when electricity was still mysterious and potentially frightening to many people. By showing that electrical forces could be controlled safely and used beneficially, Tesla helped build public acceptance for the electrification of homes, businesses, and cities. Moreover, Tesla's spectacular presentations attracted the attention of wealthy investors and industrialists who might not otherwise have been interested in abstract scientific research. His ability to make electrical phenomena visible and dramatic helped secure the financial backing necessary to transform his laboratory discoveries into practical technologies that could benefit society. By 1899, Tesla's success with alternating current systems and his growing reputation as a scientific innovator had provided him with the resources to pursue his most ambitious experiments yet. His ultimate goal was nothing less than the wireless transmission of electrical power on a global scale, a vision so grand that it required experiments beyond anything previously attempted. Tesla chose Colorado Springs for his wireless power experiments for several carefully considered reasons. The location's high altitude of over 6,000 feet provided thinner air that would be more conducive to electrical experimentation. The area's frequent and intense thunderstorms offered natural laboratories for studying atmospheric electrical phenomena. Most importantly, the relative isolation of Colorado Springs meant that Tesla could conduct high-power experiments without endangering populated areas or interfering with existing electrical systems. The financial backing for Tesla's Colorado Springs adventure came from several sources, including John Jacob Astor, who had provided $100,000, ostensibly for lighting system development. However, Tesla's true intentions extended far beyond conventional electrical equipment. He was pursuing his revolutionary concept of using the Earth itself as a conductor for wireless power transmission, an idea so radical that few people besides Tesla himself understood its potential implications. Construction of Tesla's Colorado Springs laboratory began in May 1899 and quickly produced a facility unlike anything that had ever been built. The centerpiece of the installation was Tesla's magnifying transmitter, essentially a gigantic Tesla coil nearly 50 feet in diameter with a 200-foot mast extending skyward. This apparatus could generate millions of volts of electricity and produce artificial lightning bolts extending over 130 feet in length. The scale and power of Tesla's Colorado Springs experiments quickly became legendary throughout the region. When Tesla activated his magnifying transmitter at full power, the artificial lightning it produced created thunder that could be heard from 15 miles away. Local residents reported extraordinary phenomena throughout Colorado Springs. Sparks jumping from metal objects, including water pipes and horse hooves, butterflies becoming electrified and glowing as they flew near the laboratory, and the general sensation that the very air was charged with electrical energy. One of the most dramatic incidents occurred when Tesla's experiments interfered with the Colorado Springs Electric Company's operations. During a particularly high power test, Tesla's apparatus sent out electromagnetic waves so powerful that they destroyed the local power company's generator, plunging the entire city into darkness. The power company initially blamed Tesla for the outage, leading to heated exchanges that highlighted the potentially dangerous nature of his experiments. Tesla's daily routine in Colorado Springs reflected his total dedication to his wireless power research. He worked tirelessly, often through the night, documenting his observations in detailed journals that recorded every aspect of his experiments. However, he was also secretive about his specific methods, and many of the technical details of his Colorado Springs work remain unclear even today. During his 9 months in Colorado Springs, Tesla made claims about his experimental results that ranged from plausible to extraordinary. He asserted that he had successfully transmitted electrical power wirelessly over considerable distances, lighting vacuum tubes planted in the ground several miles from his laboratory. While some wireless power transmission was probably achieved, the efficiency and practical utility of his methods remain questionable by modern standards. Perhaps Tesla's most significant theoretical contribution during this period was his calculation of the resonant frequency of the space between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Tesla determined that this frequency was approximately 8 Hertz, a calculation that was largely ignored by the scientific community at the time. Remarkably, researchers in the 1950s were surprised to discover that Tesla's calculations were essentially correct. This frequency range is now known as the Schumann resonance. Tesla also claimed to have detected what he believed were signals from extraterrestrial sources during his Colorado Springs experiments. While these were more likely natural electromagnetic phenomena, such as lightning or atmospheric disturbances, Tesla's willingness to consider such possibilities reflected his openness to revolutionary ideas and his belief that his experiments were revealing fundamental secrets of nature. The Colorado Springs experiments represented both the pinnacle of Tesla's experimental work and the beginning of his gradual drift away from practical applications toward increasingly speculative theories. His time in Colorado convinced him that wireless power transmission was not only possible, but could revolutionize human civilization by making electrical energy freely available anywhere on Earth. This vision would drive his next major project, the construction of Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island. But it would also lead him down a path toward increasingly grandiose claims that would eventually undermine his scientific credibility. When Tesla returned to New York in January 1900, he carried with him not just detailed records of his Colorado Springs experiments, but also a burning conviction that he was on the verge of giving humanity the gift of unlimited wireless electrical power. The patents he filed based on his Colorado Springs work, including his system of transmitting electrical energy and electrical transmitter, represented his attempt to transform his experimental insights into practical technologies. Tesla's return from Colorado Springs in 1900 marked the beginning of his most ambitious and ultimately tragic undertaking, the construction of Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, New York. This massive project was intended to serve as the prototype for a global network of wireless power and communication stations that would, in Tesla's vision, make electrical energy and information freely available to anyone, anywhere on Earth. The scope of Tesla's world wireless system was breathtaking in its ambition. He envisioned a comprehensive global infrastructure that could transmit not just telegraph messages and telephone calls, but also photographs, music, news, stock reports, and even electrical power across vast distances without wires. The system would use the Earth's natural electrical charge and the ionosphere as conductors, creating a global electrical circuit that could be accessed from any point on the planet. To realize this extraordinary vision, Tesla needed financial backing on a scale that dwarfed his previous projects. He found his patron in J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier in America, whose support could make even the most ambitious technological dreams into reality. Tesla's initial proposal to Morgan was tactically shrewd. He presented the project primarily as a wireless communication system that could compete with Guglielmo Marconi's growing radio empire. Morgan's investment of $150,000, equivalent to several $1,000,000 today, was substantial, but it represented only a fraction of what Tesla's true vision would require. Tesla had deliberately understated the full scope of his plans, knowing that the complete wireless power system he envisioned would seem impossibly expensive and technologically risky to even the most visionary investor. Construction of Wardenclyffe Tower began in September 1901 on a 200-acre site in Shoreham, Long Island. The facility was designed by Stanford White, Tesla's close friend and one of America's most prominent architects. The tower itself was an engineering marvel, 187 feet tall, topped with a 68-foot diameter copper dome, and supported by an extensive underground network of iron rods and copper plates that extended 300 feet into the earth. The underground portion of Wardenclyffe was as important as the visible tower. Tesla's wireless power transmission theory required a direct electrical connection to the Earth itself, which would serve as one conductor in his global electrical circuit. The elaborate subterranean system of metal plates and rods was designed to tap into what Tesla believed were the Earth's natural electrical currents. As construction progressed, Tesla's true intentions became increasingly apparent to Morgan and other observers. The Wardenclyffe project was not simply a communication system. It was an attempt to revolutionize the entire basis of electrical power distribution. Tesla envisioned a world where electrical energy would be freely available to anyone with the proper receiving equipment, transmitted through the earth and atmosphere, without the need for power lines or generating stations. This revelation created serious tensions between Tesla and his financial backer. Morgan had invested in what he understood to be a competitive wireless communication system with clear commercial potential. Tesla's broader vision of free, universally available electrical power raised troubling questions about how such a system could be made profitable. If electrical energy could be accessed freely from anywhere on Earth, how would investors recover their costs or earn returns on their investments? The situation became more complicated in December 1901, when Marconi successfully transmitted the first transatlantic radio signal, the letter S in Morse code, from England to Newfoundland. This achievement demonstrated that practical wireless communication could be accomplished using relatively simple and inexpensive equipment, rather than the massive and costly infrastructure that Tesla was constructing at Wardenclyffe. Tesla desperately tried to convince Morgan to increase his investment, arguing that the Wardenclyffe system would be vastly superior to Marconi's simple radio technology. In increasingly frantic letters, Tesla promised that his wireless system would revolutionize not just communication, but human civilization itself. However, Morgan had grown skeptical of Tesla's grandiose claims and was reluctant to commit additional funds to a project whose commercial viability seemed increasingly questionable. By 1902, construction at Wardenclyffe had progressed sufficiently for Tesla to begin moving his laboratory operations from Manhattan to the Long Island facility. The tower reached its full height of 187 feet, and Tesla began conducting preliminary tests of his wireless transmission theories. However, the project was already in serious financial trouble. Tesla's attempts to raise additional funding proved largely unsuccessful. The rich man's panic of 1903 reduced available investment capital on Wall Street. More importantly, potential investors were wary of committing money to a project that J.P. Morgan had apparently abandoned. Tesla's reputation for practical innovation was being overshadowed by his increasingly grandiose claims about impossible technologies. The death of the Wardenclyffe project was as dramatic as its conception. On the night of July 14, 1903, after Morgan had definitively refused to provide additional funding, the tower came alive with spectacular electrical displays. Newspapers reported that brilliant flashes of light shot from the tower's dome, illuminating the night sky over Long Island. No explanation was ever provided for these displays, and Wardenclyffe never operated again. Tesla's financial situation continued to deteriorate following the abandonment of Wardenclyffe. The site was foreclosed in 1915, and the tower was demolished in 1917. Its materials sold for scrap to help pay Tesla's mounting debts. The failure of Wardenclyffe marked a turning point in Tesla's career, after which he would never again attempt such an ambitious project or enjoy the level of financial backing he had received during his earlier successes. The collapse of the Wardenclyffe project represented more than just a business failure. It was the end of Tesla's most cherished dream. He continued to work on wireless transmission theories until his death in 1943, but he never again had the resources to test his ideas on the scale he believed necessary. Modern scientists generally agree that while Tesla's vision was remarkable, the physics of long-distance wireless power transmission make such systems inherently inefficient and impractical for general use. As Tesla's grand technological visions began to crumble with the failure of Wardenclyffe, The psychological pressures that had always lurked beneath his brilliant exterior began to manifest more dramatically. The decade following the abandonment of his wireless power project saw Tesla's behavior become increasingly eccentric, as he developed a series of obsessive-compulsive rituals that would eventually dominate his daily life and isolate him from normal human interaction. The first clear signs of Tesla's psychological deterioration appeared around 1917, coinciding with the demolition of Wardenclyffe Tower. What had previously been quirks of personality, preferences for certain numbers, specific ways of arranging objects, particular sequences for performing tasks, evolved into rigid compulsions that Tesla seemed unable to control. These behaviors, which would today likely be diagnosed as obsessive-compulsive disorder, became increasingly elaborate and time-consuming as Tesla aged. Tesla's obsession with the number 3 became perhaps his most noticeable compulsion. He refused to do anything that didn't correspond to this number in some way, developing elaborate rituals around multiples of 3. Before entering any building, Tesla would walk around it exactly 3 times, regardless of weather conditions or the presence of observers. When dining, he would insist on exactly 18 napkins, divisible by 3, and would methodically fold each one before beginning his meal. His hotel room numbers had to be divisible by 3, leading to numerous moves when establishments could not accommodate this requirement. The compulsive behaviors extended far beyond numerical obsessions. Tesla developed an intense fixation with cleanliness and a pathological fear of germs that made normal social interaction increasingly difficult. He compulsively washed his hands and insisted that all his food be boiled before consumption. Physical contact with other people became almost unbearable to him. He often refused to shake hands and typically wore gloves to avoid touching anything that others might have handled. Tesla's dining habits reflected his compulsive nature in remarkable detail. He would precisely calculate the cubic mass of food on his plate, using complex mathematical formulas. He determined the exact number of jaw movements required to properly digest each meal, then counted carefully to ensure he met this requirement. His meals became elaborate rituals that could take hours to complete, as he methodically performed each step according to his internal protocols. Perhaps most bizarrely, Tesla developed a profound phobia of round objects, particularly pearl earrings worn by women. The sight of pearls would send him into a state of extreme agitation, and he could not remain in the company of anyone wearing them. This phobia made social interaction even more difficult, as Tesla would have to carefully scan every gathering for the presence of pearl jewelry before he could feel comfortable. Tesla's lifestyle became increasingly isolated and regimented as these compulsions took control of his life. He maintained a strict daily schedule that varied little from day to day, working from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., dining at precisely 8:10 p.m. at the same restaurant, then returning to work until 3 a.m. This rigid routine may have provided him with a sense of control in a world that had become overwhelming to his hypersensitive nervous system. For exercise, Tesla walked between 8 and 10 miles daily through the streets of Manhattan, following precisely planned routes that never varied. Each night before sleep, he performed an unusual ritual of curling his toes 100 times for each foot, claiming this exercise stimulated his brain cells and enhanced his mental abilities. His sleep requirements were minimal. He claimed to need only 2 hours of sleep per night, though he often supplemented this with short naps during the day. Tesla's decision to remain celibate throughout his life became another aspect of his increasingly rigid lifestyle. He claimed that celibacy enhanced his concentration and mental abilities, allowing him to focus entirely on his scientific work without the distractions of romantic relationships. However, Some historians suggest that his social awkwardness and possible autism spectrum characteristics may have contributed to his difficulty forming intimate relationships. The inventor's hypersensitive nervous system, which had always made him acutely aware of sounds, lights, and vibrations that others barely noticed, became even more pronounced as he aged. He could hear the ticking of a watch rooms away, feel the vibration of approaching footsteps through the floorboards, and detect the subtlest changes in electrical or magnetic fields. This extraordinary sensitivity, while possibly contributing to his scientific insights, made everyday life increasingly difficult to endure. Tesla's chronic sleep deprivation likely exacerbated his mental health struggles and contributed to his increasingly erratic behavior. His laboratory assistants reported that he would frequently work so intensively that he would collapse from exhaustion and fall asleep at his desk. This pattern of extreme overwork, followed by physical collapse, became a recurring theme throughout his later years. As Tesla's behavior became more eccentric, his scientific work began to suffer. The man who had once been capable of extraordinary practical innovations increasingly focused on theoretical projects that seemed disconnected from reality. His claims became more grandiose, while his actual achievements became fewer, creating a growing gap between his reputation and his contemporary contributions to science and technology. The psychological pressures of his failed dreams, combined with his increasing social isolation and untreated mental health issues, created a downward spiral that would define Tesla's final decades. The brilliant inventor, who had once collaborated successfully with George Westinghouse to electrify the world, became a solitary figure whose eccentricities overshadowed his genuine contributions to human knowledge. As Tesla's human relationships became increasingly difficult to maintain due to his psychological struggles and obsessive behaviors, he found an unexpected source of companionship and emotional sustenance in the most unlikely of places, among the pigeons of New York City. What began as casual bird feeding evolved into an all-consuming passion that would define Tesla's final decades and reveal a remarkably tender side of his complex personality. The exact timing of Tesla's initial interest in pigeons remains unclear, but by the early 1920s, he had established a daily routine of feeding the birds in various Manhattan parks. Tesla was always impeccably dressed during these excursions, and some of the world's most famous figures could occasionally be seen joining him in scattering birdseed. However, as Tesla's clothing became increasingly old-fashioned and his behavior more eccentric, these distinguished companions gradually disappeared, leaving him alone with his feathered friends. Tesla's nocturnal feeding expeditions became legendary among New Yorkers who encountered him during his midnight wanderings. The tall, anachronistic figure could be seen walking through largely deserted streets after midnight, heading to parks where he would whistle softly to attract flocks of pigeons. These birds would respond to his call by perching on his outstretched arms and shoulders, creating a scene that seemed almost magical to casual observers. By 1921, Tesla had begun bringing pigeons back to his hotel rooms, creating makeshift nests near open windows so the birds could come and go freely. His first sanctuary was at the St. Regis Hotel, where he provided basket nests and carefully prepared seed mixtures for his growing avian family. The arrangement created predictable problems for hotel management, as great flocks of pigeons would gather outside Tesla's windows and inside his rooms, leaving droppings that became a persistent maintenance issue. When the St. Regis Hotel management gave Tesla an ultimatum to choose between the pigeons and his residents, he chose the birds. This pattern repeated itself at the Hotel Pennsylvania, and then at the Hotel Governor Clinton, as Tesla's devotion to his pigeons proved stronger than his need for conventional accommodations. Finally, in 1933, Tesla found sanctuary at the New Yorker Hotel, where he would spend the last 10 years of his life. Tesla's concern for the welfare of individual pigeons was extraordinarily intense. When he was too ill or injured to make his daily feeding rounds personally, he would send Western Union messengers to scatter seeds on his behalf. These proxy feeding missions became a source of tremendous anxiety for Tesla, who would make multiple telephone calls to Western Union to ensure that the task had been completed properly. The level of concern he showed for the pigeons' welfare often exceeded what most people demonstrate for close family members. Among all the birds Tesla cared for, one held a special place in his heart: a beautiful white pigeon with light gray wingtips. Tesla described their relationship in terms that bordered on the romantic, telling his biographer John O'Neill, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me." This statement, often quoted with disbelief or amusement, reveals the depth of emotional connection Tesla felt with this particular bird. Tesla claimed that he and this special pigeon could communicate telepathically, understanding each other in ways that transcended normal human-animal relationships. He said that the pigeon would come to him whenever he wished for her presence, no matter where he was in the city. In his mind, their connection represented something pure and unconditional in a world that had often disappointed and betrayed him. The relationship with his beloved white pigeon provided Tesla with a sense of purpose during years when his scientific work had largely been forgotten and his financial resources were nearly exhausted. "As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life," he told O'Neill. This statement reveals how central this relationship had become to Tesla's emotional well-being and sense of meaning. Tesla's dedication to pigeon care became more than just a hobby. It was a full-time commitment that structured his daily routine. He spent hours each week in Manhattan's parks, establishing feeding schedules and monitoring the health of individual birds. Injured pigeons were brought back to his hotel suite, where he would nurse them back to health with the same meticulous attention he had once devoted to his electrical experiments. The death of Tesla's beloved white pigeon marked a profound turning point in his life. According to Tesla's own account, the bird flew into his hotel room one night and perched on his desk, and he somehow knew she was dying. In that moment, he described seeing powerful beams of light emanating from her eyes, a light more intense than anything he had ever created in his laboratory. "When that pigeon died," Tesla later told O'Neill, "something went out of my life. I knew my life's work was finished." Whether the light he described was real or a manifestation of his grief and possible mental deterioration, the death of this pigeon clearly marked the end of an era for Tesla. Though he lived several more years, he never again reached the heights of inspiration that had defined his earlier life. Tesla's relationship with the pigeons of New York represented more than just the eccentricity of a lonely old man. In caring for these birds, creatures that his own inventions had helped make obsolete as homing pigeons were replaced by radio communications, Tesla found a way to express the compassion and tenderness that his eccentric public persona often obscured. His devotion to these creatures reveals the capacity for love that existed beneath his increasingly isolated exterior. The pigeon years also reflect the profound loneliness of Tesla's final decades. Having never married or maintained close human relationships, and having been largely forgotten by a world he had helped transform, Tesla found in his pigeons the companionship and unconditional acceptance that had been missing from his human interactions. His love for these birds was not a retreat from reality, but rather a testament to his fundamental need for connection and his capacity for empathy. As Tesla entered his final decade, His relationship with reality became increasingly tenuous, manifested most dramatically in his 1934 announcement of what journalists sensationally dubbed a death ray. At his 78th birthday press conference, held annually at the Hotel New Yorker, Tesla made headlines around the world by claiming to have developed a weapon capable of destroying aircraft, armies, or entire fleets from hundreds of miles away. Tesla preferred to call his invention Teleforce, describing it as a defensive weapon that could create an impenetrable wall of force around any nation that possessed it. According to Tesla's grandiose description, the device could project concentrated particles at tremendous velocities, powerful enough to bring down squadrons of aircraft or advancing armies. The weapon would theoretically use specially designed tungsten or mercury-based particles accelerated to extraordinary speeds through electrostatic repulsion. The Teleforce concept revealed Tesla's continued preoccupation with grandiose solutions to complex problems. He suggested that if every nation possessed such a weapon, war would become impossible, as no country could successfully attack another protected by his defensive barrier. This vision of enforced peace through overwhelming defensive capability reflected Tesla's idealistic belief that technology could solve humanity's most fundamental problems. Tesla's claims about the death ray were characteristically dramatic and specific. At a 1937 luncheon, he declared, "But it is not an experiment. I have built, demonstrated, and used it. Only a little time will pass before I can give it to the world." He claimed that the device could melt airplane engines at distances of 250 miles, and that a single installation could protect an entire country from aerial attack. These announcements generated intense interest from military officials around the world. Representatives from the United States, United Kingdom, Soviet Union, and Yugoslavia all approached Tesla, seeking information about his revolutionary weapon. However, despite this international attention and Tesla's confident assertions, no credible evidence ever emerged that a working death ray actually existed. Modern scientific analysis reveals the fundamental problems with Tesla's death ray concept. The physics of particle beam propagation makes such weapons inherently impractical over long distances. Like visible light, particle beams follow the inverse square law, meaning their energy spreads out rapidly as distance increases. To maintain lethal intensity at the ranges, Tesla claimed would require enormous amounts of power and extremely precise focusing mechanisms that were far beyond the technology of his era. Some scientists have suggested that Tesla's death ray may have been based on his experiments with high-powered electromagnetic pulses, which could potentially disable electronic equipment rather than causing direct physical destruction. This interpretation aligns more closely with the technical capabilities Tesla had actually demonstrated, and with modern military research into electromagnetic pulse weapons. Tesla's theoretical work in his later years also included increasingly fantastic claims about mechanical oscillators capable of causing earthquakes. In 1935, he told reporters that a small version of his oscillator had allegedly caused building damage in his Manhattan laboratory in 1898. He claimed that a properly sized oscillator could destroy the Empire State Building with just 5 pounds of air pressure applied at precisely the right frequency. While mechanical resonance can indeed cause structural damage under specific conditions, Tesla's claims about the power and versatility of his oscillators appear to have been greatly exaggerated. The story of Tesla's earthquake machine has become part of popular mythology, but there is little credible evidence that he ever created devices capable of the seismic effects he described. These grandiose claims reflected Tesla's increasing disconnection from practical limitations and his growing tendency toward wishful thinking. The man who had once been capable of extraordinary practical innovations was now focused primarily on theoretical projects that seemed more like science fiction than achievable technology. His announcements became more spectacular, while his actual achievements became fewer, creating a growing gap between his reputation and his contemporary contributions. Tesla's final years were also marked by paranoia and claims that his life was in danger due to his research into advanced weapons. Whether these fears were grounded in reality or were manifestations of mental illness remains debated by historians. Tesla believed he was under surveillance and that various governments and organizations were trying to steal his secrets or silence him permanently. The death ray episode illustrates the tragic trajectory of Tesla's later career. The brilliant inventor, who had once revolutionized electrical engineering, was now making claims that seemed increasingly disconnected from scientific reality. His genuine contributions to human knowledge were being overshadowed by sensational announcements about impossible technologies. Tesla's hotel bill at the New Yorker was allegedly paid with a death ray device in 1937, though this was more likely a face-saving gesture by hotel management than an actual weapons transaction. The story has become part of Tesla mythology, but it reflects the gap between Tesla's grandiose claims and his actual circumstances during his final years. Tesla's final decade was marked by increasing poverty, isolation, and a gradual retreat from the world that had once celebrated his innovations. After the failure of Wardenclyffe and the expiration of his most profitable patents, Tesla struggled financially, often unable to pay his hotel bills and surviving largely on the charity of friends and admirers. The Westinghouse Corporation, recognizing his foundational contributions to their business success, provided him with a modest pension that kept him from complete destitution. The Hotel New Yorker became Tesla's final refuge in 1933, where he lived in Suite 3327 on the 33rd floor, a room number carefully chosen because it was divisible by 3. He lived alone, except for his pigeons, maintaining his rigid daily routines and continuing to work on theoretical projects despite his advanced age and declining health. The hotel management, perhaps recognizing his historical significance or simply showing compassion for an elderly man, allowed him to remain despite his increasingly irregular rent payments. Tesla's appearance during these final years reflected his reduced circumstances. The impeccably dressed inventor, who had once moved in the highest social circles, now wore increasingly old-fashioned clothing that showed signs of wear. His tall frame became gaunt, and his once piercing eyes took on a distant quality that suggested a mind increasingly focused on internal visions rather than external reality. Despite his isolation and financial difficulties, Tesla continued to work with characteristic intensity on theoretical problems that captured his imagination. He spent long hours in his hotel room, filling notebooks with calculations and diagrams for inventions that existed only in his remarkable mind. These projects ranged from potentially practical applications of his wireless power theories to increasingly fantastical devices that seemed more like science fiction than achievable technology. Tesla's relationship with the outside world became increasingly strained during these final years. He gave fewer interviews and made fewer public appearances, though his annual birthday press conferences continued to generate headlines around the world. These events often featured Tesla making grand announcements about revolutionary inventions that he claimed to have perfected, but never demonstrated publicly. The contrast between Tesla's continued intellectual ambitions and his practical circumstances became increasingly stark as he aged. While he continued to envision devices that could transform human civilization, he lacked the resources to build even simple prototypes. His theoretical work became increasingly disconnected from the practical constraints that had once grounded his innovations in achievable technology. Tesla's health began to decline significantly in his 80s, though he maintained his daily routines as long as physically possible. He continued his regular walks through Manhattan, feeding his beloved pigeons and following the precise routes he had established decades earlier. When injury or illness prevented him from making these journeys personally, he would arrange for messengers to feed the birds on his behalf, demonstrating that his concern for their welfare remained paramount, even as his own health deteriorated. The final blow to Tesla's emotional well-being came with the death of his beloved white pigeon. According to Tesla's account, the bird came to his window one night, and he knew immediately that she was dying. The light he claimed to see emanating from her eyes as she died seemed to mark not just the end of their relationship, but the conclusion of his life's work. "When that pigeon died, something went out of my life," Tesla told his biographer. "I knew my life's work was finished." Whether this experience was objectively real or represented Tesla's emotional state, it clearly marked a turning point from which he never recovered. On January 7th, 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in his hotel room at the age of 86. The official cause of death was coronary thrombosis, and there were no signs of foul play. His body was discovered by hotel staff when he failed to emerge from his room for several days. Tesla's death at 86 was remarkable for its time, as the average American life expectancy in 1943 was only 62.4 years. Immediately after Tesla's death, the FBI seized his papers and belongings from his hotel room, reflecting government interest in any potential military applications of his work. The FBI classified many of these documents, fueling decades of speculation about hidden Tesla inventions and suppressed technologies. However, subsequent releases of previously classified materials have revealed little beyond Tesla's well-known theoretical work and increasingly fantastical later claims. Tesla died largely forgotten by the general public and underappreciated by the scientific community. He had no immediate family members to preserve his legacy, and many of his most important contributions had been overshadowed by commercial disputes and the passage of time. It would take decades for the world to fully recognize the magnitude of his contributions to modern civilization. The circumstances of Tesla's death, alone in a Manhattan hotel room, surrounded by his papers and pigeons, largely forgotten by a world he had helped electrify, seemed to embody the archetype of the misunderstood genius whose visionary ideas were too far ahead of their time. Yet Tesla's story is ultimately one of triumph, as well as tragedy, for his innovations continue to power and connect the modern world in ways that vindicate his most ambitious dreams. More than 8 decades after his death, Nikola Tesla's influence on modern life has become so pervasive that it is often invisible, woven into the fundamental infrastructure of technological civilization. Every time we turn on an electric light, start an electric motor, or connect to a wireless network, we are benefiting from principles and technology that Tesla developed more than a century ago. His contributions form the hidden foundation upon which our electrified world is built. Tesla's alternating current system represents perhaps the most fundamental technological gift to humanity since the invention of the wheel. The polyphase A-C system he developed with George Westinghouse in the 1880s remains essentially unchanged today, providing the basis for electrical power generation and distribution worldwide. From the massive generators at Niagara Falls to the smallest household appliances, Tesla's rotating magnetic field principle powers the machinery that defines modern industrial civilization. The Tesla coil, that spectacular device that first brought him public fame, continues to play a crucial role in contemporary technology. While the dramatic electrical displays that made Tesla famous were primarily educational demonstrations, The underlying principles of resonant coupling and high-frequency electricity have found applications in countless modern devices: radio and television transmitters, medical equipment, electronic ignition systems, and wireless charging devices all employ variations of Tesla's coil design. Tesla's pioneering work in wireless technology laid the groundwork for the interconnected digital world we inhabit today. His experiments with radio transmission, remote control, and wireless power transfer anticipated technologies that would not become practical until decades after his death. The wireless networks that enable modern communication, from radio and television to Wi-Fi and cellular systems, all trace their lineage back to Tesla's fundamental insights about electromagnetic wave propagation. The fluorescent lighting that Tesla demonstrated at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair eventually evolved into the energy-efficient lighting systems that illuminate modern buildings. His early experiments with gas discharge lighting were decades ahead of their time, but they established principles that would later be applied to develop the fluorescent tubes that became standard in offices, schools, and factories throughout the 20th century. Even Tesla's more speculative work on wireless power transmission has found contemporary applications. Modern wireless charging systems for smartphones, electric vehicles, and other devices operate on principles that Tesla explored in his Colorado Springs experiments. While the global wireless power grid he envisioned remains impractical, localized wireless charging has become an increasingly common convenience in our daily lives. Tesla's approach to invention itself has influenced how we think about innovation and creativity. His method of perfecting devices mentally before building physical prototypes demonstrated the power of visualization and theoretical analysis in the inventive process. Modern, computer-aided design and simulation tools essentially replicate Tesla's mental methodology, allowing engineers to test and refine their ideas virtually before committing to expensive physical construction. The scientific community has gradually come to appreciate Tesla's true significance, recognizing him as one of history's most important inventors. The International System of Units honors his contributions by naming the unit of magnetic field strength the Tesla, ensuring that his name will be spoken whenever scientists discuss electromagnetic phenomena. This recognition is particularly appropriate given Tesla's fundamental discoveries about rotating magnetic fields and their applications. Modern research continues to find new applications for Tesla's theoretical insights. His investigations into high-frequency electricity and electromagnetic fields have informed the development of medical devices, industrial heating systems, and advanced materials processing techniques. Scientists studying wireless power transmission, atmospheric electricity, and electromagnetic resonance frequently cite Tesla's work as foundational to their research. Tesla's life story has also become a powerful cultural symbol, representing the archetype of the visionary inventor whose ideas transcend the limitations of their era. His combination of brilliant theoretical insight, practical innovation, and dramatic personal eccentricity has made him an icon of scientific creativity. However, this popular fascination has also led to considerable mythologizing, with various fringe theories and pseudo-scientific claims being falsely attributed to Tesla. The lessons embedded in Tesla's biography extend beyond technology to encompass broader themes about genius, innovation, and the relationship between individual brilliance and social progress. His story demonstrates how revolutionary ideas often face resistance from established interests, and how visionary thinkers may struggle to translate their insights into practical, profitable applications. The contrast between his early collaborative successes with Westinghouse and his later solitary struggles highlights the importance of supportive partnerships in bringing innovations to market. Tesla's increasing isolation and untreated mental health issues clearly impacted his later productivity and his ability to see projects through to completion. His story illustrates the importance of mental health support and social connections for creative individuals, showing how even the most brilliant minds can be undermined by psychological struggles and social isolation. Perhaps most importantly, Tesla's legacy reminds us that the most transformative innovations often come from individuals willing to challenge conventional wisdom and pursue seemingly impossible dreams. While not all of Tesla's visions proved practical or achievable, his willingness to think beyond the limitations of his era led to breakthroughs that fundamentally changed human civilization. His life demonstrates that progress requires not just incremental improvements to existing technologies, but also the courage to envision entirely new possibilities. Tesla's tragic personal story, his loneliness, his eccentricities, his ultimate isolation from the human connections that give life meaning, serves as a reminder that technological progress comes at human costs that are often invisible to those who benefit from innovation. His relationship with his beloved pigeons, touching in its tenderness and heartbreaking in its necessity, reveals the emotional price paid by a man whose genius set him apart from ordinary human society. Yet ultimately, Tesla's legacy is one of triumph. The world he envisioned, powered by alternating current, connected by wireless communication, illuminated by efficient electric lighting, has largely come to pass. Every electric motor that turns, every radio signal that travels through the air, every fluorescent bulb that glows bears witness to his extraordinary vision. In death, as in life, Nikola Tesla remains the lightning child whose brilliant mind illuminated the path to our electrified future. As we stand in our illuminated homes, connected to the world through wireless networks, surrounded by the hum of electric motors and the glow of efficient lighting, we inhabit the world that Nikola Tesla dreamed into existence. The tall, enigmatic Serbian immigrant who arrived in New York in 1884 with 4 cents in his pocket and a head full of revolutionary ideas, succeeded beyond even his grandest visions in transforming human civilization. Tesla's life reads like an epic novel, spanning the transition from the horse-drawn carriages of the 19th century to the electric marvels of the 20th. Born during a lightning storm in a remote mountain village, he carried within his remarkable mind the seeds of technologies that would not fully mature until decades after his death. His eidetic memory, his powers of visualization, his intuitive understanding of electromagnetic phenomena, all combined to create an inventive genius whose contributions to human knowledge rank among the most significant in history. The young man who experienced his transformative vision while reciting Goethe's poetry in a Budapest park gave humanity the gift of alternating current, the invisible force that powers our modern world. The partnership between Tesla's visionary insights and George Westinghouse's practical business acumen created the electrical infrastructure that lights our cities, powers our industries, and enables the technological marvels we take for granted. Tesla's triumph in the War of the Currents, culminating in the spectacular illumination of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair and the successful harnessing of Niagara Falls, established the template for modern electrical civilization. His victory over Edison's direct current system was more than just a commercial success. It was the triumph of a superior technology that made possible the global electrical grid we depend on today. Yet Tesla's story is also profoundly tragic, illustrating the human costs of genius and the challenges faced by visionaries whose ideas outpaced their era's capacity for implementation. His wireless power transmission experiments at Colorado Springs and the grand failure of Wardenclyffe Tower demonstrate both the audacity of his vision and the practical limitations that constrained even the most brilliant innovators. The gradual descent into eccentricity that marked Tesla's later years reveals the psychological toll of isolation and unfulfilled dreams. His obsessive-compulsive behaviors, his rigid routines, his increasing disconnection from human relationships all reflect the price paid by a mind that operated at frequencies too high for ordinary human interaction. The man, who harnessed the forces of nature, found himself unable to connect with his fellow human beings. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Tesla's legacy is his relationship with the pigeons of New York City. In these creatures, he found the unconditional love and acceptance that his eccentric genius had made impossible to achieve with humans. His devotion to his beloved white pigeon, his willingness to sacrifice comfortable accommodations for their welfare, his claim to love this bird as a man loves a woman, all reveal the profound loneliness of a man whose gifts had set him apart from ordinary human society. The death of Tesla's cherished pigeon marked not just the end of an unusual relationship, but the conclusion of his life's work. When he declared that something went out of my life with her passing, he was acknowledging that his connection to purpose and meaning had depended on this simple, wordless relationship with a creature that asked nothing of him but presence and care. Tesla died as he had lived, alone, surrounded by his papers and his dreams, largely forgotten by a world that had moved beyond his immediate contributions to embrace the electrical future he had made possible. The FBI's seizure of his papers, the conspiracy theories that arose around his death, the gradual recognition of his true significance, all reflect our culture's ongoing fascination with genius and our tendency to mythologize those whose achievements transcend ordinary human understanding. Today, more than 8 decades after Tesla's death, his influence continues to expand. The electric vehicles that bear his name, the wireless charging systems that power our devices, the magnetic resonance imaging machines that save lives in hospitals around the world, all trace their lineage to principles he discovered more than a century ago. His name graces the scientific unit for magnetic field strength, ensuring that every discussion of electromagnetic phenomena honors his contributions. But Tesla's true legacy extends beyond any individual invention or discovery. He demonstrated that revolutionary progress requires more than just incremental improvements to existing technologies. It demands the courage to envision entirely new possibilities and the persistence to pursue them despite skepticism and setbacks. His willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, to think beyond the limitations of his era, to pursue seemingly impossible dreams, opened pathways to technologies that transformed human civilization. Tesla's life also serves as a cautionary tale about the relationship between genius and society. His story reminds us that transformative innovation often comes from individuals who operate outside conventional boundaries, but it also illustrates the importance of supportive communities and collaborative relationships in bringing visionary ideas to fruition. The contrast between his early successes, achieved in partnership with practical innovators like Westinghouse, and his later failures, pursued in increasing isolation, highlights the human dimension of technological progress. In our current age of rapid technological change, Tesla's example remains profoundly relevant. As we grapple with challenges ranging from climate change to space exploration, from artificial intelligence to quantum computing, we need innovators who possess Tesla's combination of theoretical brilliance and practical vision. We need individuals willing to challenge established paradigms and pursue revolutionary solutions to humanity's most pressing problems. Tesla's story ultimately reminds us that progress requires not just brilliant minds, but also the wisdom to nurture and support those whose ideas may initially seem impossible. Society benefits most when it creates environments where visionary thinkers can collaborate with practical implementers, where revolutionary insights can be translated into technologies that improve human life. The lightning child who was born during an electrical storm and died alone in a Manhattan hotel room left humanity a gift that continues to illuminate our world. Every time we flip a switch, start a motor, or connect wirelessly to the global network of human knowledge, we participate in the ongoing realization of Tesla's vision. His alternating current flows through the circuits of our homes. His wireless principles enable our communications. His induction motors power our machines. But perhaps Tesla's greatest gift was not any specific invention, but rather his demonstration that human imagination, coupled with rigorous scientific investigation, can literally reshape reality. He showed us that the impossible becomes possible when brilliant minds dare to envision new ways of harnessing the fundamental forces of nature. In an age when we face challenges that seem insurmountable, Tesla's example reminds us that today's impossibilities may become tomorrow's everyday realities. Nikola Tesla's life spanned the transformation from a world lit by candles and powered by muscle to one illuminated by electricity and connected by invisible forces. He was present at the creation of our modern technological civilization, and his fingerprints remain on virtually every electrical device we use. The child of light, prophesied by his mother on that stormy night in 1856, truly did bring illumination to humanity, a light that continues to shine in every electric circuit, every wireless transmission, every motor that turns in service of human progress. In the end, Tesla's story transcends the details of his specific inventions to become a meditation on the nature of genius itself, its power to transform the world, its vulnerability to human frailty, and its enduring capacity to inspire future generations of innovators. He remains our most vivid reminder that revolutionary change comes not from those who accept the world as it is, but from those who dare to imagine it as it could be. The lightning child's vision continues to illuminate our path toward an even more extraordinary future.